Get excited, Screen Junkies, because I, Roth Cornett, am here with Kumail Nanjiani himself.
Hi.
Hi. Are you as excited to be you as I am that you are you?
As am I excited? No, I'm never excited to be me. Most times I'm like, somebody else would be way better.
At being you?
If I had to, me being somebody else.
I feel like somebody else would be better at being me. Like, I feel like you would be great at being me.
I know like at least 10 people who'd be better at being me than I am. And I think I want to be The Rock. So whatever.
You would be an amazing Rock.
I think I'd be great. I think I'd be great at it.
You have such an expansive career. I was saying earlier that I feel like every comedy I came out of last year, I was like, Kumail was the best part.
Oh, thank you.
It was good, but he was the best part. But what I want to talk about is your film.
Yes.
The Big Sick, which is, if people don't know, I'd love it if you set them up a little bit.
So The Big Sick is basically based on my wife, Emily V. Gordon, and I wrote it together. And it's sort of based on our first year of dating in real life, and sort of all the... We kind of had a sort of a crazy little story with it in real life, and this is like a movie adaptation of it.
Yeah, I mean, how much of the story do you want people to know before they go into the film? Because I feel like I have the general beats.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think it would be best if people could go in not knowing anything about it.
Okay.
I don't think that's going to happen because we have to promote the movie and the word sick is in the title. And
I was going to say, this has been a great interview.
No, I'll say this. So it's sort of about, and it's not going to sound like a comedy, but I promise you it is. It's a comedy. It's sort of about like if two people meet and start dating and then one of them gets really, really sick way too early. Yeah. You know what I mean? Where you're in that moment where you're like, I don't know if I'm supposed to leave or if I'm supposed to stick around and see this through, like what's appropriate. And that's what happened to us in real life. Emily and I were dating for a few months and she got really, really sick. And she's great now. She wrote the movie with me. She's great. And and it doesn't sound like a comedy, but I promise you it is.
No, I believe you. I mean, I'm curious. So how do you make that decision? A, the decision that you make to stay, and B, to make a film that's so vulnerable, that's your own story.
The decision to stay. Well, that was interesting because what happened was, just to get kind of serious, it's soon as she got sick, I understood my feelings for her in a way that I didn't really before. So before that, I was like, I'm just dating this girl. I really, really like her. She's awesome. But then when she got sick, that really like sort of focused it for me. So I knew then, in real life, I knew like, oh, I have to stay and see this through and see what happens. And then in the movie, circumstances are a little different. And the reason we decided to do this as a movie was, maybe a year after this happened, when we were finally like sort of figuring out, actually maybe a few years after that, I knew that I wanted to tell this story in a movie. Emily wasn't as sure. We're both sort of dealing with it. And then you got to sort of find the window where it's been long enough that you can still feel the feelings, but not so long that you can't feel the feelings, but long enough that they're somehow processed. So you got to be in that little window, I just knew I really wanted to tell the story because a lot of ways I think it's like telling a story is therapy. And I knew I needed therapy about this, but I just knew that telling the story would articulate a lot of things for me personally, and it just felt like, just a good way to like exercise the demons of this little thing. Of
this experience, yeah. It's kind of an amazing... And I wonder if you feel this way. It feels to me like it's almost a gift because in a relationship, you often wonder, well, what would happen if we really hit hard times? And you've got that answer.
Yes. I hesitate to say it's a gift because...
Yeah, well, sure.
Well, it was very tough and it was very tough for her. But, she asks me, she's like, how different do you think things would be if I never got sick? And I'm like, I think we would still be married. And she's like, I'm not as sure, like she's like, I don't know. because of what a commitment phobia were, if you would have ever gotten over it had not something earth-shattering happened, you know? So I hesitate to call it a gift, but it did sort of accelerate certain things. And then writing about them was really, really interesting.
This movie there was a bidding war at Sundance. So talk a little bit. I've been to Sundance once, and it is such a strange, insulated, isolated environment that feels like you're in the bubble in the middle of nowhere. Talk a little bit about that experience, what it was like to go through the bidding war. Amazon has it with Lionsgate. Is it interesting for you to see the new way films are being distributed? Do you think it's positive is this the resurgence of independent films with companies like Amazon coming along and offering different platforms?
Well, it's interesting because we are getting a theatrical release. And Yeah, and I definitely, I mean, it's not going to be on Amazon until the theatrical release is done. So sort of what they did with Manchester by the Sea. Mm-hmm. They'll do it in theaters and hopefully it'll play till it plays, hopefully a decent amount of time, and then it'll come to Amazon. I always wanted the movie to go to theaters. I feel for me, I love Netflix. I watch Netflix all the time. And Emily and I have a rule, we're not on our phones when we're watching. But I think a lot of people now, because there's so many movies that are disposable. I was just with my friend today, and we were talking about going to video stores. You go in and you look at the cover and you pick one movie, and then you don't want to do anything else while that movie is on. You want to watch that movie. Now there's so much that I think the tendency is for each viewing experience to get devalued a little bit. So I like the theatrical experience because there are, you're always on your phone. I'm always on Twitter. People can get in touch with me anytime. That's really the only 2 hours of my life where nobody can get in touch with me. And so there's that. And then, it's just like you're in a theater that is designed for focusing on this one thing, get out of your head. So I think the streaming stuff is really cool. Obviously, I binge watch shows and all of that, but I do think for me, the theatrical experience is still the best.
Yeah. It is interesting, though, because it does seem to be opening up doors, especially for independent films, which I think for a while was so tough.
Well, the other thing that's tricky, I think, is if you go on iTunes and you look up new movies, there are so many new movies that I've never heard of, starring pretty big people, like huge stars in movies that you've never heard of. So I think it's pretty easy to get small movies made and then sell them to,
Vudu or
whatever.
Well, Vudu will distribute earlier. Yeah.
So, and then sell them and sort of make your money back. But then the issue is there are so many movies that gets hard to sort of break out of that pack. There's I'm a big horror fan, so I'll go to the horror section.
And it's funny because you brought up being very active on Twitter and you're active on social media. And I'm curious if that was always true for you. Did Silicon Valley at all inspire you to be more active on social media?
No, I kind of fell for Twitter immediately. I loved that you could have, you could talk to people directly. And, that's a blessing and a curse. But when I first started, I was I could type something and have people actually see it in real time in that moment and reply to me in that moment. And for me, for touring, when I was touring a lot as a stand-up, I didn't have to do terrible morning radio shows to promote. I didn't have to try and pitch myself to newspapers. I could just tweet hey, this city, I'm going to be here this date. And the people who follow you on Twitter are the people who would want to come see you at a comedy show. So for me, it was just a great way to get people to come out to shows and also to just sort of talk to people. I talk to people a lot about video games and horror movies and stuff on Twitter. In the beginning, now it's a little unwieldy. It's a little unwieldy for me, but I used to just talk to people and get recommendations. I could just be hey, what's a good movie to watch? These are the horror movies I like. And I would just get some pretty good recommendations. So yeah, I liked it immediately. I still like it a lot.
You do? You haven't soured at all? That's great.
No, what I did do was sort of take a step back on reading my mentions. because people disagree with you.
Really?
And they're very sure of it.
That's so interesting.
They're very sure.
They
I don't know if you know this.
I didn't know.
It's not a place for nuance, really.
No!
It's for strongly
The
held
internet?
opinions.
There's only good and terrible.
Everything is either the best or the worst.
You should die.
You should, having someone say like, I don't know how I feel about this, what a joy that would be. I haven't heard anybody not have an opinion in like 3 years.
I know you're a big X-Files fan, so I'm going to ask you to reboot the X-Files for us, but tell us what you're actually going to do next.
I would love to reboot.
As a writer?
Well,
Would
I don't
you?
want to reboot because I still think Mulder and Scully should be in it, but I could be like I don't know, I could be like the new boss that they don't like or something, you know, like this guy gets promoted and they don't like him and
Is
they don't
he an
trust him.
alien?
He's certainly allied with them. It's sort of like, I don't want to get political, but it's sort of like certain connections that we're talking about right now where you're like, we're pretty sure this is happening, but we don't fully have the proof yet.
What are you actually going to be doing next?
Silicon Valley, hopefully
Or we're going to reinvent the internet.
Hopefully. Oh, yeah, that's true. That is the new season. Reinvent the internet, new internet. But, right now it's all about promoting this movie. Like it really, it's a lot of work promoting movie. We're doing a stand-up tour to go with the movie and all that. And then I don't know yet. Well, that's the thing. It's like, we just finished making this. It took like 5 years. So I need to like clear my head a little bit before. Although seeing something like Get Out, I was like making a horror movie about a social issue, which I think horror movies and sci-fi has always been really good at.
That's the place for it, yeah.
Yeah, and it has been really good traditionally. And now people are like, horror movie with a message. How strange. I'm like, but that's what they used to be.
That's what it's for.
Yeah,
that's
if you watch, that's what it's for. And it's sort of, the worst of it has devolved into sort of gore fests and, people use the phrase torture porn or whatever. But I think the best horror and the best sci-fi is always about stuff. And so Get Out is part of a long tradition of these movies. I mean, if you watch the original Star Trek, the original series.
It's all political.
Battlestar
Galactica.
Yeah.
The new Caprica storyline.
I haven't seen that.
Oh, you got homework. You've got homework, and the internet has homework because why don't you go to Twitter and suggest what Kumail should do next and what he should write next?
Yeah.
But first, before you do any of that, you need to go see The Big Sick. I can't wait to see it. This sounds like an extraordinary story, and so I think incredible to be that vulnerable and funny at the same time. And you can do so on June 23rd.
June 23rd. June 23rd, select cities, and it'll go wide July 14th.
All right, do it. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you and you know what? Spider-Man's going to be out then. So if you want to see Spider-Man, not our movie, all I say is buy a ticket for The Big Sick, then go see Spider-Man.
Well, you could see both. Buy a ticket for Spider-Man, go see Spider-Man, then buy a ticket for The Big Six, and then go see that too.
Basically, buy a ticket for The Big Sick.
That's the important
Whatever
thing.
else you do is up to you.
It's your journey, man. Click here for more awesome Screen Junkies news and click the logo to subscribe.